Today in my coaching assignment, I'm going to talk about the skills and how a coach should be acting when around performers. Skills required by a coach. Communication is possibly the most important part with participants. They need to listen as much as talk to them. There are two main types of communication. Verbal communication, which should be kept simple and appropriate. They need to know that they have everyone's attention and check for understanding by asking questions afterwards. Then there's non-verbal communication, such as body language, which is mostly done unconsciously. Athletes should be able to see the difference between positive and negative body language when a coach is talking to them. Organisation skills are important as well. This keeps the athlete's attention. They will know how many people are in the session, is the session appropriate to them, what equipment is needed, and how much of it they'll need. They will check if the facility is ready on the day, and they'll book it, and they'll know all safety procedures that they need to follow should there be an emergency. They should make sure that they leave the facility how they found it, which would be nice and clean and tidy. They must have a clear start-stop procedure, such as blowing a whistle. A benefit of a coach being well organised is that they will know what they are doing for a certain athlete in the sport. If a coach doesn't keep organised with what he's doing, then he won't keep the performer's attention. And once he has lost the attention of the performers, they will no longer take him seriously, and it will be harder for him to get the attention again. If they were to come to a session and the athletes noticed that they didn't have the equipment that he needs for the session, then the athlete may not take him seriously and may not show him the respect. If a coach doesn't plan for the session that he's going to be coaching, then it makes it harder on him, as he'll have to come up with something completely off the cuff, and it may not work for them, and it could mean that the athletes are doing a session that they don't need to do or they can't do. This skill is valuable to a coach, as they need to be able to keep their athletes' attention, and they have to be able to get things ready on time for the athletes, so they don't have to wait about getting cold. This will make the coach's job a lot easier, as they won't have to worry about thinking about what they are going to be doing next and what their equipment they're going to need for the session. Motivation is a vital skill for a coach to have. They need to be able to develop a plan for the athletes to be able to keep them focused and happy with what they're doing. They will need to be able to make the session challenging for the athlete, yet enjoyable enough for them to want to carry on. There are two types of motivation. Intrinsic. This is self-motivation. This is based on accomplishments. People wish to improve their performance and get a sense of self-worth. People look at experience in a sense of extreme excitement or adrenaline rush. People are interested in sport and tactics and technical aspects. They wish to develop their knowledge. Intrinsic motivation. This is where athletes take part in sport due to external factors, such as tangible rewards, which are physical rewards that you receive when successful. For example, trophies, medals, money, and more. Then there's intangible rewards, not physical rewards, such as recognition from others, praise, or encouragement. Knowledge of a coach. A coach must have an understanding of three different components used by sports performers during their competitive performance. Technical. A technique is the way that an athlete performs a skill. This is, in some sports, athletes use different techniques to produce the same outcome. A coach should have a clear understanding of the technical requirements of the sport in which they are coaching and the ability to analyze technical requirements of sports performance, spotting areas which require development. Tactical. Tactical are skills and strategies a player uses in sports to be able to win. A coach needs to be able to develop these sports performers' understanding and apply tactics in competitive performance. Rules and regulations are part of a coach's skills. This is because they have to have some knowledge about the rules and regulations of the sport that they are coaching to the participant. This is because if they were not to know what they are, a coach will be making a performer do something that will in turn make them get penalised for the wrong action, and then they'll have for the wrong action. However, if a coach was to be fully aware of the rules and regulations, then they could include tactics in the sport to make the game or performance go their way. Professional qualities of a coach. Professionalism is important for a coach, and it's a coach's responsibility to act professional in a manner around performers. The way that a coach conducts themselves and behaves will determine the experience and behaviour of the athlete. A good coach will demonstrate appropriately dressed. This will reflect you as a coach, and the athletes will have a perception of you through your attire. They should prepare for the session and have all the equipment that is needed. They will have planned out what they are going to do as well. They should speak clearly and should look at the level that they are coaching and should make it appropriate to their level and what they are able to do. They should be following any national governing body codes of conduct. This means that they should be up to date with their knowledge of the conducts and should be acting in a manner that is appropriate to the athletes. It's important. This could be one of the most important, in my opinion, and it to be a good role model. You should be setting a good example for the athletes that are around you. Also, they should be demonstrating a good behaviour and using appropriate language when around these athletes. This means they should not be swearing or using any form of language that could be hurtful or mean towards a person or towards a group of people. This is more important if you're a coach to a younger group of children. This is because if you use bad language, then as children being as impressionable as they are, they may think that it's okay for the coach to do it, so it's okay for them to do it as well. This could have really bad knock-on effects for the coach, as he could lose his job for not being a good positive role model around kids. A coach should be adaptable and a problem solver. It's invaluable for a coach to be able to solve problems when it arises. A coach may try to adapt a session to try and make it so that the majority of people can get involved and not sitting out of it. The quicker that a coach could resolve a problem and provide athletes with an alternative, the coach will become more efficient. With being more efficient, the coach will find it easier for them to adapt to the more obscure problems that they may face. Best practices of a coach. It's important for a coach to have safeguarding and DBS checks. It's important to have when you're working around younger children or impressionable adults. They have a responsibility for children and they have to make sure that they're okay with everything and it is fine and that they are looking after them when they're in the coach's care. A coach has a duty of responsibility and for care and welfare of the children. They have to make sure that nothing is to happen to the children and they have to protect them from any danger that could arise. However, before working with children, a coach must go through a process called a disclosure and barring service, or a DBS check. This is to make sure that the coach doesn't have any convictions against them that would mean that they can't work with young children or impressionable adults. If there is any kind of conviction, there will be a decision that has to be made by an organisation after they've received and reviewed the DBS check. it is important for a coach to provide equal opportunities for all of their participants. This is because a coach will have a group of people who have a mixed ability level. Also, they'll have a range of ethnic and social backgrounds. So the coach has to plan a session around all of that and make sure that no one is left out for any reason. It is important that a coach gives everyone the same opportunities as so the athlete are able to adapt and improve on their skills and knowledge of the sport. A coach should make sure that they're demonstrating equal opportunities and that they're not making it a bad experience for any of the athletes involved in the session. Also, before a session, a coach will do a risk assessment of the environment and the activities. At all times in the session, a coach has a duty of care towards all the athletes that are participating. They have to make sure that the athletes have a safe environment for the session. To do this, the coach makes a risk assessment for the area and for the session, and will try to minimize any risk that there may be to an athlete participating in a session. A risk assessment is done by the coach examining all the equipment before it's used and the facility and playing area where the activity is going to take place. Once a hazard has been seen, the coach will make sure that they reduce it or they completely eliminate it before the session begins. Methods that a coach could use to support. One of them is feedback. For an athlete to be able to develop, they need to have relevant information and positive feedback. This isn't only limited to the coach giving feedback. It could also come from other performers, spectators, officials, and also performers themselves. Some of the types of feedback that they give are feedback to groups. A coach may provide feedback to a group of people as a whole, with the focus of the feedback should be positive and the feedback should be clear and concise, with any information provided to be kept simple and specific to make sure that all have an understanding and they all can follow the feedback. Feedback to individuals. A coach will often speak to the performer on their own. This allows for more specific feedback back to the performer in a one-to-one session during the athlete session. With it being a one-to-one, the coach can highlight key areas of development and consider how to develop the performer over the next few sessions. When a coach is giving feedback to an individual performer, the coach should plan what they're going to say to them in advance. Also, they could use goal setting. This is important for a performer to have goals when it comes to the performance and their training. When a coach doesn't set, or if they set imprecise goals, their coaching plans could cause a lack of focus and performance, which in turn means the performer will not develop in their sport. Goals should provide clear directions for the coach and the performer and motivation for both to achieve. Some kind of goals that a coach could use is primary and secondary. Primary goals are at the end and the ultimate focus for the performer. Secondary goals are the goals that the performer achieves along the way towards the primary goal.